coming. We're going to be talking about maintaining the classroom culture. I know for me, where I teach, I guess I'm a fourth grade reading teacher at Duquesne City Schools. It is my second year. Oh, I don't know what I just did. All right. It is my second year at Duquesne, and it is my seventh year teaching. So we're going to be talking a lot about just what it means to maintain your culture moving forward. It's something that I know I work very hard to establish in my classroom. It's something that is important to me moving forward. So just a quick look at what virtual learning looks like at my school. Moving into the school closure, we have no virtual learning platform previously established. So everything that we are doing at the school is kind of learned by doing. We did have one-to-one iPad devices during the school day, but students were not taking them home. So as we closed, teachers, we were allowed to develop a learning system that met whatever needs we thought we had. We needed to deliver new content and instruction, and we have 2 half-hour live instruction sessions that are required, and we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like for me. And then we are moving forward with a normal grading policy, so students are graded in all subjects. That includes specials like art, music, gym, and all of that. We did have a 2-week closure leading up to virtual instruction where we prepared, and that's kind of where a lot of things started. So I really focused on connecting with my families and making sure that I had a valid contact information for them. And that's where we started. So the whole presentation is based on this quote right here. Students have to Maslow before they can bloom. Especially where I teach, and hopefully in your classrooms too, you really focus on making sure the students' well-being, emotional, physical well-being is met before you expect them to learn. It's something that I established in my classroom. It's something that we know in our community is really important. And so it's something that I wanted to maintain moving forward. I wanted to focus on moving forward. I wasn't willing to let that go to have students meet the academic expectations. So in my classroom, because like I said, every teacher at Duquesne, it looks a little bit different. So in my classroom, this is what our virtual learning looks like. So we have every day, we have optional Zoom instruction. So if you look here, I told you at the beginning that we were expected to do 2 half-hour sessions a day. Our grade level has taken our whole 4-hour block and we've split it up. Now, the expectation here is not necessarily lessons and instructions. The students log in and the first thing that we ask them is, what can we do for you? What do you need from us? What that means is that the students' needs then are being met. They may need to ask a question about their math. They may need to ask a question about their reading, but they may need other things like, I don't know how to check my email. We've had, my mom works during the day. How do I do my work without her help? So the focus here is not necessarily on delivering instruction. The focus here is on checking in with those students. If they need that academic component, that's what we give. But the whole focus of being available these 4-hour time slots is that I can meet students where they are. I can hear what their needs are, and I can meet them just like you would in the classroom. When a student comes in, they need X, Y, and Z, you can meet them at that level. So set aside that. And we have delivered lessons through this platform, again, if that's what the student needs. We have students who log in and just want to do their work with a teacher sitting there. We have students who will log in, they'll close their video, they'll mute their screens, and they'll just do work because they want to feel like they're a part of that community. And that's something that we do offer. The other thing that I do is I make twice weekly contacts with anybody that I haven't heard from. So on the left, you see an example of my basic contact log. You'll see where it's highlighted. That means I received a response from that student or that parent. Um, T means text, E means email. If you see a C, that means call. And that's just me rotating through the different contact methods and knowing that if I get a response at one method, that's the method I'm going to use the next time. And we'll come back to this at the end when we talk about how do you know if your contact is working or not. If you're not familiar with Google Voice, I use it to contact all my students. Basically, it lets me set up a second phone number on my phone where students can text me or call me, and it lets me kind of control who has that information, and it lets me know that if a phone call or a text is coming from that number, it's a student, and that's the way that I need to respond to that. So here is an example of what we send out to the students. This document gets posted multiple places. Gets posted in a Google Classroom. It gets sent out through email. It gets texted to parents. It gets sent. We set it up in a link, and basically, this is the learning schedule for the day. So just like in my classroom, I would have the learning schedule posted on the board. I send this to the kids, and this is their schedule for the day. It explains exactly what they need to do with links to each individual system. So here you see, here is today's work. I have set up that they needed to do a Google form. They needed to do 30 minutes of Success Maker, which is a software that we use. And then they have an additional assignment in iLet, as well as their PE assignments. All of these links are live and navigate to individual assignments. And so what this enables us to do is, because it's a Google form, we can save it as a PDF, we can save it as a Word document, we can text them the link. This is accessible to anybody, no matter what your situation is. So no matter what technology you have available to you at your house, we've made sure this is available. You also see these two teachers here. These are our support staff members. This is our learning support teacher, and this is our ESL teacher. So they have modified the assignments where applicable and posted those there. So again, everything is in one spot, and it makes that contact really easy, and it makes it a nice common ground for us to access all the students. So the point of this is that students aren't overwhelmed. If I post the week's worth of work, they have this big long list of assignments, and it's just overwhelming. This keeps it very simple. It keeps everything in one location, especially because our school doesn't have a common system. So let's go back to the presentation here. And I want to show you some of the things that I've done, because the thing that was really important to me and what I really want to focus on is taking what you are doing in your classroom already and moving that into the virtual space. I see a lot of teachers have started completely new systems. We've never used this before. We're going to start using it now. So my goal was, how do I take the systems and the policies and procedures that I've already implemented in my classroom and move them to a digital space? For me at my school, one of the things that was really important to me was being able to support my students' individual needs. I have a lot of students that work with the learning support teacher. I have a lot of ESL students. So something for me that we do in the reading classroom is I always offer everybody the opportunity to have the story read to them. With the technology available, I wasn't sure that was going to happen. So when I send them their weekly assignments, we would, in class, we would go through these. This here is something that would be projected on the board. We would talk about this as a class and answer questions. And then we would read the story together if that's something you need. So what I've done is I've taken the story, provided them the text, but also provided them a read aloud.
Welcome to today's Read Aloud.
So what you see here
Read
is
stories from survivors.
I will read the story into the video, and the text that I'm reading is going right along with that. So
these people showed tremendous courage and hope. They have inspired others to never give up.
It's not a picture of my face. There's nothing for them to be distracted by. It's just offering them the same supports that we would have in the classroom. So again, that's the focus of all of these assignments, is how do we take what we do in the classroom and move it to a digital space. The same thing here. These are both systems that we use in the classroom, and I wanted to take and just figure out a way. These are assignments that require a lot of support. So this interactive reading, we use iLit is a system we use at Duquesne. In the classroom, students were expected to complete the assignment, and before they submitted that assignment, they were supposed to show an adult and get it checked with an adult to receive feedback. What I've had to do in the digital space is allow them to submit the assignment and then offer feedback to those students in a one-on-one space. We know that not everybody has the same expectations for their work. So I have students that should be writing me 2 or 3 paragraphs, but I also have students who, if I could get a whole paragraph out of them, that's amazing. So I work with my co-teacher, and we offer them feedback after they submit the assignment and allow them to resubmit the assignment with that support, because we're not there to show them step by step what we need from them or what we need them to change. It takes longer, but again, it maintains that culture that the teacher is here to support you. We're taking care of that emotional well-being. They don't have the stress of, I have to submit this and I don't know if it's right, because that's not what the expectation has been all year. So my takeaways from the learning that I have come away with, that I found and learned through the process, is to prioritize. So like I said with our Zoom meetings, it's how are you, what do you need? If they need that academic support, that's great. If they don't need that academic support, how can I get you to a place where I can support you with academics? We have students that don't have internet. So, how can I help you get what you need to be successful? Students aren't going to stress themselves out over work. Parents have too much to do. So it's our responsibility to make sure that that stress level is lowered so we can offer the students the support that they need. The other thing that I learned is don't reinvent the wheel. And that's really kind of the main thing here. What were you doing in the classroom, and how can you make it work in the digital space? So reading the stories to the students, how can I get the students to take in the story? If they're used to that story being read to them, they're not going to now start reading it on their own, because it's a support they've had that you've now taken away. So any supports that I can offer to my students are going to A, increase the quality of their work, but B, increase the positive culture in my classroom. They're going to feel supported. They're not going to have those feelings of loneliness and helplessness. And response does not equal reception. So if we go back to my contact log and take a look, just because they're not highlighted doesn't mean they're not hearing me. So this student right here, this student right here is a good example. On the 6th, I emailed them to let them know that some aspect of their work wasn't done. On the 8th, I didn't have to contact them again. So that means that in some way, shape, or form, They got my communication. Parents are busy. I miss phone calls all the time. I miss text messages all the time, emails all the time. Just because you're not getting something back from them doesn't mean they're not hearing you. So this goes into really knowing your students and knowing the situations. You spent all year building culture in your classroom. You know what the kids are dealing with at home. You know what your students' lives are like at home. So you know kind of what to expect back from those parents. It also goes into knowing how to contact those students. Should you be texting this parent? Should you be emailing this parent? So pay attention to those signs on what your students need and those clues to what your students need, because that's going to be an important part of your culture. If you can show that you remembered something about that student, or you know how to contact them easily, the easier you make it, the more positive those feelings are going to be. And if you can build positive feelings and positive emotions, then you can start to increase the quality of the academic work. So some simple, easy tips that I think are going to increase the quality. Talk with siblings. Duquesne is a small district, so I know teachers that have siblings of my students. So I reached out to those teachers and found out, what are you getting or not getting from siblings? I'm not hearing anything from this student. Can you help? It even becomes sharing resources. So we have a kindergarten teacher in our district and we share siblings. She has sent me their work. I've sent her my students' work, because any way we can get that work home, the more we can spread what the expectations are, the more we can spread the resources, the more success we're going to have. So if you know that Mrs. Jones down the hallway has one of your students' siblings, don't be afraid to reach out. Spread the wealth. So like I was talking about when I showed our schedule, we post that schedule as many places as possible. The more people that have your resources, the more work you're going to get, and the more parents and students are going to feel like you really care about and are reaching out to them. Just make your access available and focus on the idea that not all students are going to have the same device. Even if your district sent home Chromebooks or iPads, not all students are going to be using that. So some students are going to be accessing it on a cell phone. How can you make your materials accessible no matter what the system your students are using? I know a lot of my students use cell phones. So how can I make sure that my students can access my materials even if all they have is a cell phone? Again, I use email, text, Google Classroom, and anywhere else I can find. So what are some places maybe that you don't have the ability or haven't thought to post your assignments yet? And then this one, again, is consolidate. So on that schedule, everything is right there housed in that schedule. Our students don't have to access 30 different sites to know what their work is for the day. So even if the math teacher is using a different assignment than a different system than you, or the reading teacher is using something different than you, how can you consolidate all those materials together? I wrote the less resources your student needs to access, the less work they think they will need to do. So it seems like less work is if everything is in one place rather than spread out across like 10, 15 systems. I know, especially at Duquesne, in my reading class alone, we use 3 different systems. We use a system for intervention, a system for individual practice, a system for direct instruction, and the math teacher uses 2 different ones, and the science teacher uses 2 different things, and the specialist teachers. So we have come up with ways to consolidate all that to make it as easy as possible for the students. So moving forward, now that the students realize that I'm still there for them, that I'm still a support system for them, now I can start to explore deeper methods of learning. And how can I extend and find those really deeper, meaningful academic experiences for the kids? Right now, at the beginning, we were very surface level. So it was base level things. Read the story and answer the questions, because I just wanted them to know that they have the support, and I wanted them to use those supports. Now that they have the supports, they know and they feel that we still have this classroom community. How can we move forward, and how might I use what I have there to create those meaningful learning experiences that we all look for? When it all comes down to it, in the classroom, you can't create those meaningful experiences without first building the community and culture. So you can't expect them to do that online. But as soon as we move to online instruction, the students, it flipped. It doesn't feel like a classroom. So the idea is do everything you can to let the students know that you're still there for them and we still have this classroom community. So